guys and gals, how you doing? My name's Jeff. This is my cave of cool books. It's getting a little hot in the cave. The weather is starting to go up the centigrade here in Japan. It's a pretty warm day. I have the aircon on, or I had it on, decided to turn it off so it doesn't get too noisy. Anyway, so if I get a little sweaty, forgive me. Okay, it's getting sweaty Jeff season. Apologies in advance. I'll try my best to keep myself cool on screen. But today I want to talk a little bit about a kind of oddball, interesting, and more modern mystery series. Now, those of you who've watched my channel regularly, you probably know that I'm a fan of mystery and detective fiction, particularly vintage golden age mystery and detective fiction, as well as private eye fiction, and police procedurals, which is kind of what I'll be talking about today. This is Christopher Fowler's Peculiar Crimes Unit series, PCU, better known as the Bryant May series. Christopher Fowler sadly passed away a few years back from cancer, but while he was wrapping up his life, he was able to wrap up this series in a very satisfactory way. So good on him for that. He started off as a kind of copywriter and working in the film industry. I believe he was a film marketer, and then he wrote several horror novels and stories, which kind of started his reputation. And then he started this series called the Peculiar Crimes Unit, or Bryant and May series. Now, who are Bryant and May? They are the oldest working, still employed detectives, homicide detectives in the Metropolitan Police in London. And London factors extremely strongly in all of these. It's hard to describe these very often quite long and involved and highly entertaining mysteries. Basically, they're very complex puzzle plots in a traditional style, I would say, of detective stories, mixed with modern police procedural, mixed with kind of some horror elements, I would say, or suspense elements for sure, and also a lot of history, a lot of esoteric history of London. Christopher Fowler obviously was very interested in that subject, and so is his main character, Arthur Bryant. Now, Arthur Bryant, I believe, is the senior of the two as far as age goes. Basically, the series follows them when they first started out kind of as police officers in the Blitz during World War II, 40s era, and goes all the way up until the last book was published in the 2020s. So at this stage, Bryant and May are very old. Now, John May is the more, I guess, put together sort of member of the duo. He is much more socially adept. He's more slick. He dresses well. He's handsome. He's kind of suave. And he kind of works as the middleman, I suppose, between the very strange and cantankerous Bryant but brilliant Bryant and the rest of humanity, I guess you could say. Anyway, the Arthur Bryant he lost his wife at a very young age during the Blitz, never got married. He lives with, I think, an old West Indies lady who's his housekeeper, Alma, I think her name is. And he's always digging in his pockets for lint-covered sweets, hard-boiled sweets, and he's always, discombobulated and roughly dressed and doesn't take care of himself with this kind of little crown of silver hair over his bald pate. But he's absolutely brilliant and very snippy and sarcastic and just a cantankerous individual. He's a lot of fun, a wonderful character, and he and John May work well together, and they have a team, the Peculiar Crimes Unit team. Basically, they've set up their own division, and it's constantly in threat of being shut down. And whether the main, especially in the modern era of British policing, where they're trying to do things a very streamlined way, focusing more on politics and less on policing, I guess you could say. So maybe a few cutting satirical barbs thrown that way from the writer Christopher Fowler. But the unit keeps on plugging along, somehow pulling the fat out of the fire at the last minute. And the books are really fun, starting with And I have read almost all of them. There's probably there's 20 books that came out in this series before Mr. Fowler passed away, starting with Full Dark House. Now this one is fun. This one is kind of, it's maybe has a little bit of a framing story of set in the modern day era, or at least modern day when this first one came out, which was 2003. So from 2003 to 2023, about, those books came out almost one a year. A couple of them are short story collections. One's a collection of just facts. The character Arthur Bryant leading you through London, talking about some weird facts. Every book is crammed with some esoteric lore about Britain, about London particularly. They're very London specific, these books. Anyway, Full Dark House is a lot of fun. This one kind of introduces the characters, but as young men, when John May first comes to join the Peculiar Crimes Unit and starts working with Arthur Bryant, and how their partnership is forged. It's kind of got a huge nod in this one to the Phantom of the Opera, etc. So I'll just read you a little bit of the back to kind of give you the sense of what this is like, right? So the Seattle Times has a little blurb here. Unusual and absorbing life in wartime London is beautifully drawn here, as are the behind-the-scenes theatrical shenanigans. They could be crime-fighting's oddest couple, a cranky but brilliant pair of old detectives in the London Police Department's Peculiar Crimes Unit. With edgy unease and hard-hitting suspense, Christopher Fowler delivers a thriller of a case that won't stay closed and a killer who won't stay caught. So yeah, it kind of hops back and forth between the Blitz era, World War II era London, and the present day, early millennium, new millennium day. A present-day bombing rips through London and claims the life of 80-year-old detective Arthur Bryant. Or does it? Obviously, it's the first of a 20-book series, so maybe not. For Detective John May, it means the end of a partnership that began over half a century ago during the Blitz of World War II. Desperately searching for the killer, May finds the notes his old friend kept of their first case and a past that may have returned with murderous vengeance. It began with the grisly murder of a dancer in a risque new production of Orpheus in Hell. In a city shaken by war, a faceless killer stalked London's theaters. This is the back in the Blitz era, creating his own sinister drama. And it would take Bryant's unorthodox techniques and May's dogged police work to catch a criminal whose ability to escape detection seems almost supernatural. A murderer who decades later may have returned to kill again. So yeah, these are a real fun and engrossing combination of serious suspense and kind of brutal murder cases, mix quite often serial killer cases, and sometimes spy type cases are involved there, mixed with some offbeat humor coming from the characters. Bryant himself, Arthur Bryant, 80 years old in the start of the series, probably pushing 90 by the end of it, or 85. I think Fowler plays with the time frame to kind of make sure that it was still somewhat believable, but these older guys wouldn't have been cashiered out from the police force anyway. These are wild and woolly mysteries, so you got to give them a little bit of credibility leaps there. Bryant, the main cranky guy, brilliant detective guy, the one who comes up with the huge leaps of logic to solve the cases at the end, has a lot of strange friends who from all walks of life, which come back and throughout the series. Now, the second book was really heavy on the suspense, and Bryant and May were still heavily involved, but it was also from the point of view of a young woman and her husband, and that's called The Water Room. This one is really interesting. I have a copy of it. I know I do. I bought the copy. I must have left it back in the States. I can't find it here. The second novel, The Water Room, this woman's house is somehow linked to a series of underwater old rivers that have been since built up on top of in London. And there's fascinating history woven in there about this kind of esoteric lore of all these former riverways under London. It's quite interesting. And there's a nasty killer involved there that the duo, Bryant and May, have to track down with their team. Now, their team includes, pretty much from the first book on, in the modern day, they've kind of been saddled with this mid-management sort of guy who doesn't really have any skills, but The only real reason is he's the devil they know, I guess, that they keep him around, Bryant May. But his name is Raymond Land, and he's kind of a pencil pusher who's always trying to keep the group together and have them follow the rules. And of course, Bryant and May break them left, right, and center, especially Bryant. Other cast members of the PCU, there's Janice Longbright. Janice Longbright is the long-suffering, kind of glamorous. Imagine a kind of Ava Gardner, Lana Turner type. She loves to dress like an 50s movie siren. She's described as, very attractive and quite voluptuous. She's probably a little older, though, in her 40s, pushing 50 maybe. And she's been, from a young age, her mother used to work for Bryant and May, and now she does as well, and eventually her daughter does later on. And she's kind of she's a detective sergeant, but she kind of keeps the house together, I guess you could say, running all the clerical side, really, plus getting some good investigation done. There's Colin Bimsley, who's young, stalwart, forthright, but he has a slight depth perception issue, so sometimes he runs into walls when he's trying to chase a suspect. But he's very well-meaning and lovable character, and he's besotted with fellow Sergeant Mira Mangeshkar, who's got a real chip on her shoulder, but is slowly coming around to Colin's charms, I guess you could say. There's a couple of tech guys, Giles Kershaw and Dan Banbury. They kind of, I think Giles kind of leaves off and goes off. He's kind of a coroner, I guess, kind of forensic pathologist that used to be part of the team and moves on to his own separate department, but still helps them out occasionally. Dan Banbury is more of the tech guy. And there's a few other characters that come and go, but that's the main one. There's Crippen the cat, the PCU's official mascot. Now, sometimes the books go back in history. There's that one that's the first one set mostly in World War II era. There's one set in, I believe, the 60s or 70s. And there's some short stories that are set back then that come along. But most of them are set in the new century here. And it's very funny to see the elderly and curmudgeonly Arthur Bryant struggling with how London is changing. The face of everything is changing, and the London that he still remembers, is it still there? Parts of it are still there. A lot of it has gone away, changed to something else, and he's bemoaning that fact. He's a font of what might seem to be useless knowledge, but he kind of works in his crazy quilt pattern of a brain to put things together, to put facts together to solve the cases. The third novel was 77 Clocks. Now this one's a really intricate, wild mystery with kind of a old conspiracy, an assassin's guild, I think, that's pulled into this. Quite wild one. That one's a lot of fun. After 77 Clocks comes 10-Second Staircase. Now you see I'm moving from mass market paperbacks to trade paperbacks. The series started to do that. I was into the series and I was picking them up as soon as I could. On trips back to the States. And as you see there, a peculiar crimes unit mystery. This is not, before they started to kind of market them as Bryant and May. You'll see later Bryant and May is on the title of every book. But 10-Second Staircase is very interesting as well. We got artistic rivalries, sleazy sex affairs, the Knights Templars, feuding street gangs, and a decades-old crime spree that split up their partnership, Bryant and May's partnership, before and threatened to end it again with murder. So lots of craziness going on there. Then we have White Corridor, which is not one of my favorites, although it does have a very atmospheric setting in a snowstorm-bound London, where Bryant and May are stuck in this long traffic jam. Their cars are stuck because of this heavy snowfall that suddenly came down. And they're trying to get back to their office of the Peculiar Crimes Unit office and deal with a serial killer that's on the loose. That one's quite cool. Then we have The Victoria Vanishes. Now this Victoria is the pub, a favorite pub of Arthur's that he comes by one day and it's gone. Where did it go? What's going on with it? It's the start of an interesting mystery from that point. Murder doesn't get any more peculiar than this. A lonely hearts killer is targeting middle-aged women at some of England's most well-known pubs. What's even more peculiar, Arthur Bryant happened to see the latest victim only moments before her death at a pub torn down 80 years ago. It's only the beginning of a case littered with clues that defy everything the veteran detectives know about profiles of serial killers and the mythology of crime. What do the Knights Templars, again, the secret history of English pubs and the discovery of an astounding religious relic have to do with this recent crime spree? More important, do the Peculiar Crimes Unit's 2 living legends have enough life left in them to stop a murderous conspiracy and a deadly Cupid targeting one of their own? That's very fun. Okay, and then I have, after a while, I think we'll kind of, I think we're in order for quite a while, and then later I kind of moved to the Kindle, and I don't have all of them. I've read almost all of them, but I might not have all of them physically at hand. So that one was the 6th novel. Then we have Bryant and May on the Loose, and this, from this point on, the titles all have Bryant and May on them. They're marketing them that way. Bryant and May on the Loose, we have a blurb from Val McDiarmid, who wrote several mysteries, including the Vera mysteries and the Wire and the Blood mysteries. Devilishly clever, mordantly funny, sometimes heartbreakingly moving. So it can do all, it can kind of juggle these tones. Fowler juggles those different tones effortlessly in most of these books. Londoners seem to be losing their heads, literally, in that one. Then we have Bryant and May Off the Rails. This is the 8th novel in the series. So, praise for the ingenious novels featuring the Peculiar Crimes Unit. Fowler, like his crime solvers, is deadpan, sly, and always unexpectedly inventive. That's from Entertainment Weekly. Anyway, very fun, that one. So then, as you can see, I've moved to hardbacks after that point. I started buying hardbacks for whatever reason. I guess picking them up online or Barnes & Noble. Then I have the 9th one, Bryant and May and the Memory of Blood. Got some pretty cool covers there. Quirky, touching, profound, and utterly original. Peter James. Invest the traditions of the golden age of detective fiction with a tongue-in-cheek postmodernism, the Evening Standard. Yeah, so a mix of suspense, humor, traditional British murder mystery, weird, oddball characters, and British corners of history and lore. Really interesting combination, this series. I highly recommend these. Then we have Bryant and May and the Invisible Code, the 10th novel. And you'll see the little forms of the more pudgy Bryant and the more slim. And again, it's not a very good depiction of them, I don't think. But tall, slim John May. Then we have the 11th book, Bryant and May, The Bleeding Heart. And again, it's too involved to go through the descriptions of all these stories. But suffice it to say, Fowler kept coming up with weird and inventive crimes and plots, and they're all over the place as far as tricksiness and last minute aha moments and pulling the rug out from under the reader, etc. And then I think after that I don't have any physical copies other than one more story collection. But then we get to the Bryant and May, The Burning Man, for the 12th book. I know I've read this one, and the Burning Man in question is a literal Burning Man, not the Burning Man Festival, I'll have you know. Bryant and May, Strange Tides. I have that one on Kindle, I believe. Bryant and May and the Wild Chamber. Bryant and May, Hall of Mirrors. Bryant and May, London's Glory. That's a short story collection. I have read it. Perhaps I got it from the library. I don't seem to have it physically in hand or even a Kindle copy. Bryant and May, The Lonely Hour, number 17. Bryant and May, England's Finest. I do have that collection of short stories featuring Bryant and May. And I believe there's, let's see, looks like 10 stories maybe. What I like about these is they always give a dramatis personae, or quite often they do, or quite often the novels start with a kind of a memo from Raymond Land, the kind of pencil-pushing dweeb of a manager of the Peculiar Crimes Unit, when it's really run by Bryant and May, for sure. But he's usually addressing some various funny things that are going on. But this mentions Raymond Land, acting temporary unit chief, Arthur Bryant, Detective Chief Inspector. John May, Detective Chief Inspector. Janice Longbright, Operations Director. Dan Banbury, Crime Scene Manager, Infotech. Now we have Jack Renfield, a regular cop who's been brought in for assisting the PCU, Operations Director. Mira Mangeshkar, Detective Sergeant, so DS. Colin Bimsley, Detective Sergeant. Giles Kershaw, Forensic Pathology. Crippen Staff Cat. The two Daves are these two, I believe, are they Czechoslovakian or maybe Romanian workmen who are always working and repairing on the rundown offices of the Peculiar Crimes Unit. And Maggie Armitage, who is an operating white witch who assists Bryant on many cases. So, and then we had the final book, final novel, 19th novel, London Bridge is Falling Down. And that's the last book of the series narratively that kind of ties up everything in a pretty nice and kind of bittersweet and effective ending. Really wild, involved mystery in that one. And then before he passed away, Fowler had, I guess, written a kind of overview of some of the weird, eclectic history of London, and that was published after his death, I believe, in the very last, the 20th book in the series. And it's not technically part of the series per se because it's a nonfiction mostly, but it's Bryant and May's Peculiar London, and that is, I haven't picked that one up. I haven't read that one yet, but it looks really fun. You get a lot of that kind of information throughout the novels, but this one coalesces and focuses it in. What makes it somewhat tied into this story, I guess, is Bryant, particularly, who's famous for his knowledge of London's history, leads the reader through various parts of London. So, kind of a nonfiction / fictional take on that kind of travelogue, I suppose, or city guide. Anyway, very fun, unusual series. I will try to read one of these and review it in more detail so you can get an idea specifically of the series. But if you at all like murder mysteries, if you at all like police procedurals, and if you like the weird and strange and the history of the ancient old history of a city like London coming back to affect the modern era, suspense, sometimes horrific elements, a man wearing a stag's head, murdering people in a London park, that kind of thing. There's some really fun stuff in this series. So I highly recommend Christopher Fowler's Bryant and May series. That's all I have for you today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying what you're reading. I will see you in another video real soon. Till then, take care.